Welcome back to Justice Under Review. We know you've been waiting, so without further ado, let's dive right into today's story. You think you know power. You think a $5,000 custom Italian suit and a Yale law degree give you the right to crush anyone who gets in your way. Vance Harrington certainly thought so. He was the shark of Philadelphia, a defense attorney who chewed up the innocent and spat them out before his morning espresso. But one morning in the Criminal Justice Center, Vance made the fatal mistake of screaming at a quiet 16-year-old girl sitting on a courthouse bench. He assumed she was a delinquent. He assumed she was nobody. He didn't know that the woman walking through the metal detectors behind him wasn't just a mother coming to pick up her child. She was a U.S. Marshal with a federal warrant in her pocket, and she was about to turn his entire life into a nightmare. This is the story of how arrogance met the ultimate karma. The air inside the Criminal Justice Center in Philadelphia always carried that same heavy mix of floor wax, damp wool coats, and quiet anxiety. Rain streaked the tall windows, blurring the gray skyline beyond. Vance Harrington checked his reflection in the polished elevator doors. He smoothed the lapel of his charcoal pinstripe suit, a Savile Row masterpiece that cost more than most people in this building made in a year. At 42, Vance was the managing partner of Harrington, Pierce, and Associates. He was handsome in a sharp, predatory way, with slicked-back blonde hair and eyes that constantly hunted for weaknesses. Today was supposed to be routine. He was defending Connor Blake, the son of a pharmaceutical executive, caught drag racing his Porsche down Broad Street while intoxicated. It should have been a simple DUI. But Vance didn't do simple convictions. He did acquittals, loopholes, and ruined reputations. "Where's the coffee?" Vance snapped at his paralegal, a nervous young man named Tyler clutching a stack of files. "The line downstairs was insane, Mr. Harrington. I didn't want us to be late for the suppression motion." "I don't pay you to think about time, Tyler. I pay you to keep me caffeinated and prepared. If I walk into Judge Whitaker's courtroom with a headache, heads will roll and yours will be first." Vance spun on his heel, briefcase swinging, and marched toward the seating area outside courtroom 402. He needed his usual bench near the radiator, away from the drafty doors. But today it was occupied. A girl sat there, no older than 16. Black, wearing an oversized gray hoodie, faded jeans, and clean white sneakers. Long, neat braids framed her face. A thick chemistry textbook rested on her knees while she scribbled notes in a spiral notebook, headphones over her ears, completely absorbed. To Vance, she was an eyesore, an obstruction. He stopped directly in front of her, tapping the toe of his expensive Oxford shoe on the linoleum. She didn't look up. She was humming softly, tapping her pen against her chin. Vance's patience, already razor-thin, snapped. "Excuse me," he said, loud enough to turn heads. The girl blinked, startled. She pulled her headphones down. Her eyes were wide but steady. "I'm sorry, were you talking to me?" "Yes, I was talking to you," Vance sneered, looking down his nose. "You're in my spot." She glanced around the crowded hallway. "There are other seats farther down. I didn't see a name on this one. I'm just finishing homework before—" "I don't care what you're doing," Vance cut her off, voice rising. "This area is for attorneys and clients, serious business, not for whatever this is, loitering." The girl closed her textbook slowly. "I'm not loitering. I'm waiting for someone." "Likely story," Vance scoffed, and glanced at Tyler for backup. "You see this? This is what happens when security gets lax. They let riffraff clutter the hallways, probably waiting for a public defender to plead down a shoplifting charge. Aren't you?" The hallway quieted. A few people stopped to watch. The girl stood up. She was tall for her age, but she still had to look up to meet his eyes. Her voice stayed calm, almost unnervingly so. "Sir," she said, "you don't know me. I suggest you lower your voice and find another bench. There's one open by the water fountain." Vance laughed, a cruel bark. You suggest I sit by the leaking fountain? Do you have any idea who I am? No, the girl said simply, and I don't really care. His face flushed red. He wasn't used to defiance, especially not from a teenager in a hoodie. He stepped closer, finger jabbing toward her chest. I am Vance Harrington. I own this hallway. I own that courtroom, and I can have you removed from this building faster than you can spell incarcerated. Now take your little chemistry book and your attitude and get out of my sight. Go wait in the lobby with the rest of the delinquents. Tyler looked terrified. Mr. Harrington, please. Judge Whitaker is taking the bench soon. Vance ignored him. I'm teaching this young lady a lesson about respect and social hierarchy, something her parents clearly failed to do. The girl's jaw tightened. Her hand drifted to her hoodie pocket, clutching her phone. Justice under review. Subscribe now and turn on notifications to make sure you never miss our latest stories. Leave my parents out of this. Or what? Vance leaned in so close she could smell his cologne mixed with sour breath. You'll tag me in a post? You'll cry? Move, now. He reached out and shoved her textbook. It wasn't a hard shove, but it was enough. The heavy book hit the floor with a loud thud. Papers scattered across the dirty tiles. Oops, Vance smirked. Clumsy. The girl didn't scramble. She didn't cry. She stared at her scattered notes, months of AP chemistry work, then looked back at him. Her eyes burned with quiet intensity that even Tyler noticed. You shouldn't have done that, she said softly. I'm doing you a favor, Vance replied, adjusting his cufflinks. Teaching you that the world doesn't care about your homework. It cares about power, and you, little girl, have none. He kicked one of her papers aside, leaving a muddy streak across a molecular diagram. Just then, the bailiff called from the courtroom door. Mr. Harrington, Judge Whitaker is taking the bench. He wants all counsel on the Blake case inside immediately. Vance shot the girl one last smug look. Saved by the bell. Consider this a warning. If I come out of that courtroom and you're still here, I'll personally call security and have you arrested for harassment. Understand? He stepped over her chemistry book like it was trash and strode into courtroom 402, adrenaline surging. Crushing people always gave him the edge he needed to win. Inside, the wood-paneled room felt like his arena. His client, Connor Blake, sat at the defense table looking bored in an overly shiny suit. Vance placed his briefcase down with a confident thud. All rise, the bailiff boomed. Judge Harlan Whitaker entered, robes billowing. He was known for zero tolerance of lawyers who wasted his time. Good morning, the judge said gruffly. We are here for the suppression hearing in the Blake matter. Mr. Harrington, are you ready? Ready as always, Your Honor. Vance flashed his winning smile. The prosecutor stood. Ready, Your Honor. However, we have a slight delay. Our key witness is stuck in security downstairs. Vance chuckled theatrically. Typical. The state can't even manage the elevators, yet they want to manage my client's freedom. I move to dismiss. Denied, Judge Whitaker said flatly. We'll wait 10 minutes. The double doors at the back of the courtroom creaked open. Vance turned, expecting the tardy technician. Instead, two uniformed deputies stepped aside. A woman walked in, radiating absolute authority. She wore a tactical vest over a dark windbreaker with bold yellow letters, U.S. Marshal. A gold star badge hung from a chain around her neck. Combat boots thudded heavily down the aisle. But what turned Vance's blood to ice wasn't the badge or the gun on her hip. It was the girl walking beside her. Nia Brooks, the same girl from the hallway. She clutched her chemistry book to her chest and stared straight at him. The family resemblance was unmistakable. The marshal didn't stop at the gallery rail. She walked through the gate, past the prosecutor, and stood in the center of the well facing the judge. What is the meaning of this interruption? Judge Whitaker asked, tone respectful. Federal marshals didn't barge in for nothing. The woman turned slowly until she faced the defense table. Her voice was calm, but carried a dangerous edge. "I apologize for the interruption, Judge Whitaker. I am Deputy U.S. Marshal Serena Brooks. I was downstairs filing a federal detainer when I was informed that an individual in the hallway assaulted my daughter, destroyed her school property, and threatened her with false imprisonment." Vance felt his throat close. "Assault?" he squeaked. "I never touched her." "You shoved my book," Nia said clearly. "You kicked my notes, and you threatened to have me arrested for sitting on a bench." Serena Brooks stepped toward the defense table, all 5'10" of federal muscle and fury. "Is this true, counselor?" "She was in the way," Vance stammered. "I didn't know who she was." Judge Whitaker's voice dropped. "Mr. Harrington, did you or did you not create the disturbance I heard earlier?" "I asked her to move," Vance cried, sweating. "She was loitering." "I was waiting for her," Serena said coldly. "I told her to sit there and do her homework. I told her she would be safe here." She leaned over the table, hands flat on the wood. "Was I wrong, Mr. Harrington? Is my daughter not safe from grown men throwing tantrums in the Hall of Justice?" The court reporter had stopped typing. The prosecutor hid a smile. Even Connor Blake scooted his chair away. "It was a misunderstanding," Vance whispered. "I apologize. I didn't know she was a marshal's daughter." "That," Serena said, straightening, "is exactly the problem. You only treat people with respect if you think they have the power to hurt you." She reached into her vest pocket and pulled out a folded document. "I have some bad news for you. I'm not just here because you bullied a child. Your name came up in the investigation I was filing downstairs." Vance's heart stopped. Serena unfolded the paper. It was a warrant. "Justice under review. Subscribe now and turn on notifications to make sure you never miss our latest stories." "Vance Harrington," she announced, voice booming, "you are under arrest." The silence that followed was suffocating. Vance stood frozen, hand halfway to his tie. "Is this a joke?" He forced a laugh. "Your Honor, this is retaliation. This is abuse of power. I'll have your badge for this, Marshal." Serena didn't blink. She walked around the table, boots thudding. "Judge Whitaker, I am executing a federal warrant issued this morning by the Eastern District of Pennsylvania. Charges include racketeering, witness tampering, and 3 counts of bribery involving a federal official." The color drained from Vance's face. "The FBI has been watching your firm for months," Serena continued. "Specifically, the payments you made to silence witnesses in the Moretti case last year. We had the indictment sealed. We were waiting for the right moment." She stopped inches from him. "I was actually on my way to your office to serve this. But when I came to check on my daughter, imagine my surprise when I found the target of my investigation screaming at her in a hallway." Vance looked at Nia. She stood by the gate, clutching her book, watching him with terrifying calm. "Turn around," Serena commanded. "I refuse," Vance snapped, arrogance flaring one last time. "You cannot arrest me in the middle of a hearing. I am representing a client. This violates his Sixth Amendment rights." Judge Whitaker slammed the gavel. "Mr. Harrington, you are an officer of the court, and right now you are disgracing it. The U.S. Marshals have jurisdiction. Deputy, assist the Marshal." The bailiff grabbed Vance's arm with grim satisfaction. Serena moved fast. She twisted his wrist behind his back and shoved him against the table. "Ow, you're breaking my arm." "Stop resisting," she said calmly. The cuffs clicked tight around his wrists. "Vance Harrington," Serena recited, "you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." As she hauled him upright, Vance saw the gallery filming on their phones. His own client stood up slowly. "I'm firing my counsel effective immediately," Connor Blake announced. "I'd like a continuance to find a lawyer who isn't currently in handcuffs." "Granted," the judge said. "Mr. Blake, you are free to go for today." "No!" Vance shouted as Serena marched him down the aisle. Connor, don't walk away. I can fix this. You can't even fix your own situation, Connor sneered, heading for the exit. At the gate, Nia held it open for her mother. As Vance was marched past, she spoke in a clear, steady voice. You were right about one thing, she said. Social hierarchy is real, but you forgot the most important rule. Vance stumbled. And what is that? Karma doesn't care about your suit. Serena tugged his arm. They dragged him out of the courtroom, through the very hallway where he had been king just minutes earlier. Now he was the prisoner, and the girl with the chemistry book watched him go, her mother's U.S. Marshal badge gleaming like a shield. The nightmare had only begun. Down in the basement holding area, the air smelled of industrial cleaner and despair. Vance stood in his silk socks on the cold concrete while they took his Rolex, gold money clip, phone, and fountain pen. Each item clacked into the plastic tray like pieces of his soul being stripped away. He begged not to go into general population. Serena's answer was simple. You should have thought about that before you started bribing jurors. But don't worry, federal holds are separate. You get a private suite. They marched him past cells where men he had once represented jeered and laughed. The door to his cell clanged shut with brutal finality. Hours later, they pulled him out for an interview. The man waiting in the small room wasn't his senior partner. It was Marcus Reed, the special prosecutor the Department of Justice had brought in from Washington. Vance had destroyed Marcus 5 years earlier, planted rumors, leaked lies, gotten him disbarred for a year, and run him out of Philadelphia in disgrace. Marcus slid a photograph across the table, Vance handing an envelope to a juror in a parking garage. Your wife filed for divorce 3 hours after your arrest, Marcus said flatly. She also gave us the passwords to your private server, the one in the basement of your mainline mansion, the spreadsheets of every bribe. Your senior partner cut a deal yesterday. He says you were the mastermind. He was just an unwitting dupe. Vance slumped forward, forehead on the cold metal. His empire had collapsed, and he hadn't even heard it fall. Justice under review. Subscribe now and turn on notifications to make sure you never miss our latest stories. At the arraignment the next morning, the courtroom was packed. Security footage from the hallway had leaked. 40 million views. Vance Harrington, the Shark of Philadelphia, was now a viral villain. Bail was denied. He was remanded to federal custody. 3 months later, at sentencing, the room was quieter. Vance sat in an orange jumpsuit, broken. His wife was already in Aspen with a new boyfriend. His former partner sat in the back, pale and shrunken, having traded testimony for a light sentence. Special Prosecutor Marcus Reed stood. Your Honor, we can pinpoint the exact moment karma arrived. At the precise second Vance Harrington was in that hallway, kicking a teenager's chemistry notes across the floor. Downstairs, a key witness cracked. The dealer who supplied drugs to his client. That witness implicated Vance directly in witness tampering and suborning perjury. Those 13 minutes of feeding his own ego gave the FBI the final piece of probable cause they needed to execute the sealed warrant. Marcus looked straight at Vance. If you had simply walked past her, if you had just gotten your coffee and gone into court like a professional, you might have had another day to run. But you couldn't. You had to bully a child to feel big. And that decision bought the justice system the time it needed to end you. Judge Carter didn't hesitate. Vance Harrington, you used the law as a weapon for personal gain. You disgraced your profession. I sentence you to 20 years in federal prison, followed by 5 years of supervised release. The gavel fell like a coffin lid. As the marshals led him away, Vance looked toward the back. Serena Brooks stood to leave, Nia beside her in her school uniform. Nia wasn't gloating. She looked at him with something that broke him completely. Pity. She raised her hand in a small wave. Bye, she mouthed. Then she put her headphones on and walked out with her mother, stepping straight into her future. Vance Harrington was led out a side door toward a transport van that would take him to a federal penitentiary. He was nobody now, just another inmate number. And with a sickening certainty that would haunt him for the next 2 decades, he finally understood the girl with the chemistry book had been right all along. Karma doesn't care about your suit. Vance Harrington believed his wealth and status were invincible shields. He operated under the delusion that power meant the ability to crush others without consequence. He never imagined his undoing wouldn't come from a rival or a complex sting, but from a random morning when he decided to belittle a 16-year-old girl. His story is a brutal reminder that character is revealed in how we treat those we think can do nothing for us. Vance's fatal mistake wasn't the bribery or the fraud. It was the blind arrogance that made him believe he was untouchable. In the end, the shark of Philadelphia wasn't taken down by a bigger fish. He drowned in the shallow waters of his own ego, proving that sometimes the hardest justice is the kind you bring upon yourself. Justice Under Review. Subscribe now and turn on notifications to make sure you never miss our latest stories.